Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Insanity. No, Bitcoin, Bitcoin. Suppose all you kids who had the kahunas to step in and buy against those laws, you're all good, sticky rich. Let's go buy your Lambos. Okay, that was a crazy start. Let's try that again. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the RationalInvestor.com's Data Brief with your wacko crazy host, Brian Beamish. What a nut job. Anyway, I don't know if there's a hell of a lot I can add to the equation here today. Cats and dogs are officially living together. So it's kind of like, in fact, actually, there was somebody on social media yesterday, and I was even commenting about it. Of course, I did my rant there yesterday. Then I went off and hung out with Liam, and it was interesting because Liam went a little bit nutso yesterday, which kind of sucked. But unfortunately, that does happen with autism. You just never know what the hell's going to come up. Gotta roll with the punches. But we went and bought God, McDonald's is so damn expensive, but he has all these state subsidies and stuff. So thank heavens the good taxpayers of the province of British Columbia pay for his McDonald's. But actually, I still have that broiler chickens thing up there. Let's load this because I know sometimes there are actually people who watch this video, which I know sounds crazy. They do have comments, so I just want to see if you guys have a comment or two. Let's see who's out there. And of course, it's 4 minutes past the top of the hour. We'll try and do about a half-hour summary here, of course, which usually spills into about 40 minutes or so. Then we'll pop on over to the after party, and we'll maybe explore some of these topics that we've reviewed here today in a little more detail. So, did the video yesterday, and as I said, what I like to do on Sunday, and usually Sunday is fairly quiet, but I like to pull up the weekly chart, and it was fascinating because as I was sort of blabbing my way through, talking this market down, we had rolled over, the inside bar was working, and then at the 37-minute mark, and I even put another sort of tweet out following. I had made a reference that, hell, if this market can rally back above this 21,376, that's going to create like a hammer. And we might just find that the whole damn market just launches higher. And guess what, folks? I mean, when I came back after Liam yesterday, I looked at the chart and went, holy crap, that's exactly what happened. It was like sort of the last thing in the world I was expecting to happen. But I mean, that's what makes a horse race. It's quite remarkable. So I had even tweeted out hammer scenario at 37:31 of yesterday's video actually happened. And hammers, the problem is that what the hell's going on in the world? How can what's the why? And unfortunately, I think it all comes down to this. We've been sort of living a little while. We've been living here with this idea that, hey, maybe well, anyway, free money, whatever the term is that they used to describe it. Maybe these days were over, and that the Americans, being sort of the world hegemony currency, were trying to get their act together and quit with this inflation, hyperinflation, Klaus Great Reset crap. But I think the Fedsters were just reminded yesterday about how utterly and completely addicted this whole society, I mean, from top to bottom, is on this free money sort of crack addiction. So the latest victim du jour, as it appears, this is this SVB Financial Group. This is a 2-day chart, because actually 2 days, maybe I even do like a weekly chart. So I wanted to just sort of show you, they always say the more things change, the more they seem to stay exactly the same. Here's a chart of AIG, and when it was nationalized and the U.S. government took it over, And then it's just basically set here for pretty much the past 10, 15 years, just bumping along, doing nothing down at the bottom end of its range. Is that the fate of these regional banks? And especially things like these, Silicon Valley financial institutions that are not really technically banks. It's interesting because Mr. Powell even specifically said here, just not even that long ago, I think it was in the Humphrey Hawkins testimony there a week or so ago, that he kind of wanted to put all non-banking entities out of the banking sector. And frankly speaking, I think actually they were probably more than happy to just let this SVB just go right off the board and kill it. But there was one major contributor, one major depositor that I think it was the number one reason why they stepped in and saved this thing, was the number one depositor there who owns this circle. And again, this just speaks to the absolute utter corruptness of our entire society here. I mean, it is corrupted from the top all the way down. It's just brutal how corrupt this is. So because this circle here had such a large deposit at this particular bank, and we all know who owns Circle, and if you don't, do a little bit of research on your own. I won't name names. I'll say it's the letter that comes before H and before T in the alphabet. You can figure out the rest on your own. And there's no way in hell that they were going to take a loss like this. It just wasn't going to happen. It is interesting when you look at the bank stocks themselves this morning. Been just sort of perusing through how do they look. And I will say that it does look like Goldman is going to take a bit of heat here. If we look at the weekly chart, and the same logic works when I suggest that if you're going to buy something, hunt for weekly W's. Well, this is the exact opposite. And interesting how, look at this beautiful head and shoulders top up top here. Foggenbaum's, interesting how we banged into 2.618s, rallied right back up, then put in another top up top here. So Foggenbaum's, my hunch is this Goldman stock wants to come back down to 265. But also notice too how there, look at this juicy gap right here, just yawning gap right at that 4669 area. Then notice how this 4669 also lines up with that gap as well. So it'll be interesting to see whether Goldman comes out of this unscathed. I have a funny feeling they've got their fingers caught in the cookie jar. And of course, they have a lot of sort of exposure to crypto, interestingly enough. It'll be interesting to see whether there's any further fallout from all of this in the crypto space. But you can definitely see that the banks, they got themselves into a bit of a corner here. And then, specifically, this is all about these regional banks. And as I said, I actually think that the Fed, particularly, they would love to bankrupt all of these regional banks. The Fed, right? It's the word, right? Fed. Big national scale, money center banks, primarily concentrated out of New York and Wall Street and all that. These regional banks, this has been sort of like the big sort of Achilles heel. Why the Fed and the banksters can't take over the system is these people keep getting in their way. And so what a perfect opportunity to wipe out this whole competition to the Fed. And of course, that solidifies their control of the system even more. But, is the contagion actually been contained? And that's the $64,000 question right now, of course. And if we just look at the Western Alliance Bancorp, you tell me, does that look like the problem is over? I mean, this stock was, $125 a share roughly. Again, the irony of all of this is if you actually just, I'm not going to sound arrogant. I don't want to sound like a dick, but seriously, folks, Have you ever heard this Brian Beamish guy go, if you ever see the market smiling at you, you better run for the hills? So you can actually make an argument that there was actually quite a bit of anecdotal evidence that there was trouble brewing. I will say that I did not see this out of the regional banking system. I mean, the irony of it all is this SVB again. I mean, look at this. It's almost cliche how ridiculous this is. May you ever see the market smiling at you? Should you maybe be thinking something? I mean, look at that. And it's just an absolute train wreck following that event. So I actually think there's quite a bit of warning here that there was trouble on the horizon. Yeah, exactly, Andre. So many charts, so little time. And who the hell's like watching these regional bank sub indexes and stuff? Anyway, clearly, if you want to make a fortune shorting the market, you could make the argument that this is your sort of Obama quantitative easing bottom. You can see beautiful double bottom, gotta admit, great looking long. And, there is your cycle peak. If anything, and this is probably why this has gotten so crazy, is that this was actually supposed to be our fear cycle pivot here. So the end of 2017, beginning of 2018, that's when we were supposed to pivot. And then along came Klaus and wet food markets in suburban China and sicknesses and oh god, blah 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 blah. Should we debate mortgage in your future? Shut the fuck up! Give them all the money that they want. Train wreck. What can you do? It was interesting. There was a gentleman and I who were sitting in that. Geez, there was one day trader that I was sitting there in our day trading room this morning, and he cleared like fucking 9 G's on Bitcoin this morning. 9 grand. Way to go, Cypher, you goddamn monster, you. So, the irony of it all is if you are ready, willing, and able and at your helm and just trading your setups, all he did was just trade a moving average setup that I taught him a while ago. And he's like, hey, got to get long. And, and he rode that bull this morning. So way to go, Cypher. Anyway, point of the matter here is I would avoid even thinking about stuff like this right now. This is if anything, ironically enough, they used to call it in this cycle, they called it the TARP program, and that was toxic asset relief purchases or something like that. And I got a feeling that these are now toxic assets, and I'd also caution as to whether you really want to go too into this. You don't even know, like something like an SVB, this thing's now off the board. So somebody might look at this and go, geez, that looks really cheap at $100, but even now in the after hours market, SVB here bid 39, offered 39.49. Ouch. So, you might think that you're coming in and getting a steal at $100 a share here because, hey, it was $700-800. And this thing might not even come back on the board. And the reason why I have AIG on here is, it might turn into something like this. So just, be forewarned. I don't think it's a good idea for any of us to go in and just sort of declare a bottom here. That's just asking for trouble. Probably, the biggest thing that I see going on here, which is going to be music to all the crypto kids' ears, especially if you have something that's like a POW asset that specifically what the cost of production is, what the value of these things are, versus like these bank stocks or any of, these, equities that are trading in the market that are hundreds of millions of shares out, and you don't even really know where people are long and short and shit. at least something with like a Bitcoin, at least there's a solid fundamental story and it's just all about cost of production. And I get the impression, like I was saying to you there just a moment ago, that quite literally the moment, and this happened about, I think probably about an hour into my rant yesterday afternoon. Um, and we talked about this as it was happening. There is that hammer candle. So we were doing the video yesterday. Price was down. And I was like, well, and it's the 37-minute mark of the actual broiler chicken show, which is quite remarkable. And I suppose we should just say, for the record, somebody did ask me a bit of a politically sensitive, religious question yesterday. I did try to give a just perfectly honest, straightforward answer. Did get a bunch of positive feedback from my very, truthful answer to you. But I do understand anytime you make any references to religion or anything like that, usually it triggers people. So my apologies if anything I said with regard to religion yesterday was, triggering. Did notice I lost probably a good 100, 200 followers on Twitter. And the only reason why I could think that is because of that. But anyway, back to our story here. So we were talking this through yesterday. Yesterday morning, it was looking like these banks were in big trouble and there was going to be bankruptcies and dilution. And, the Fed was, planning on inflicting pain in society. And that's exactly what's happened. And it looked like we were working our way lower. And then all of a sudden, just slowly, the market started to lift. And this actually created what's called a hammer candle. And then, on social media and stuff, I was putting out like hammer time videos and stuff. MC Hammer, hammer time. So whenever you see a hammer in the marketplace, everybody all gets all excited and stuff. At TRI, hammers. We like hammers. Hammers are bullish. And sure enough, look what's happening here today. Holy free holies. Is it maybe a little too far too fast? I'm kind of thinking it's probably not the healthiest of move to just go straight up like this. I will say that's a powerful reversal. We had lost the 13 EMA and we were sitting, comfortably below it. And the market quickly ratcheted right back up and recaptured it and then settled in here nicely. And then, as I said there a moment ago, when we look at like the lower time frame charts, this was through the video yesterday. In fact, this was like yesterday morning. We had drawn an up channel. I mean, how ironic, eh? Like I was, just like literally 2 days ago, I was putting out tweets and all that kind of fun stuff right here that I couldn't believe I basically pulled one out of my butt and shorted here and then basically took profits at the 127, 1.2618 right in here. And I was just sort of like, okay, well, let's let this thing settle down. Let's let it find a bottom, maybe some bull divs, and we'll think about the long. But what was their plan? Let's just take this damn thing straight up. And actually, this is a really good application of trend channel theory. So notice that if we actually drew a trend line off of the tops, right, boom, boom, and then project that off of the most recent reactionary low, which is how you're supposed to draw trend channels, it created sort of this lattice work of trend lines. And, what I like to do is I actually like to let the market information itself just validate whether this is for real or not. So it's interesting how we banged right up into this trend line. And last night, when I came back from being with Liam, I looked at this. This probably explains why Liam went a little bit nutso there. Like I've told you, the interesting thing is with the humans, I think that they are highly, highly susceptible to all these celestial events, the aspects, moving planets, moving constellations, conjuncts, oppositions, and all that kind of energy. And actually, from what I understand, they just found a new sort of not a full planet. I think it was about half the size of Pluto. But it has rings that are bigger than like Saturn, which is like remarkable. Anyway, I noticed that they banged into this trend line. This was, we have one gentleman on the site, Colin, part of the Hero Exchange people. He affectionately, this is the 38.2 to 50% fib. We like to call this Colin's dump chaser zone in this particular case because this is the dump, but you're not allowed to sell here. If you wanted to sell, you have to wait for the dump chaser zone. And I put out tweets yesterday kind of going, this is kind of looking like an interesting trade location. We didn't see this. So yesterday when I came back from Liam, I was sort of like, well, we traded back to the POC, and this was the top of value up in here yesterday. We banged into this trend line. We banged into the 200 SMA, and price just sort of stopped. And I think price stopped because people kind of got word that potentially the Americans were going to go and basically nationalize this SIVB or SVB to make sure that the depositors get their money back. Why would they do that? Well, as I said to you earlier, I think it's because Goldman Sachs was basically the primary depositor at this bank, and there was no fucking way. Goldman Sachs owns the United States government, so there's no fucking way that they're going to take this kind of $3 billion hit if the U.S. government can help them out. And all of a sudden, mysteriously, oh, look, the U.S. government's going to come in and make everybody whole. Oh, what a surprise. If these guys weren't here and it was just all these people, they would have been toast. I mean, dude, does the U.S. government give a shit about Roku? I don't think so. But anyway, that's tinfoil hats, all that bullshit. So anyway, the point here is it contained at just SVB? And I got the impression that kind of yesterday, they kind of thought, okay, well, this is probably just going to be contained within SVB. But then what was really interesting was that the Europeans, and I think the Europeans are still on their knees. Yeah, so the Asians came out. And of course, the Asians, they didn't really have that big of a reaction out of China. Sensex, wow, that's interesting. I never. Anyway, geez, a good 1.5% drop. Where's Japan was down about a good 1%. Then the Europeans woke up, and the Europeans, they really shit the bed here. So that was a bit of a surprise, and I think that kind of caught the U.S. regulators off guard. And then they announced, first thing this morning, you know what? We better have Mr. Biden give a speech to the U.S. public about the banking system. But Chris, weren't you telling me that he was like MIA this morning? Was that you who said that? I thought I remember something.
Yes, I was paying attention to wait and see when Biden did come out, but I didn't see him come out. So it was like 30 minutes in, and I gave up. And I think Fox
Yeah.
gave up too. So
Mr. B here says the speech was 1 minute long. So that was probably all he could remember before he had to go and refresh his Alzheimer's meds, right? Anyway, but more importantly, they had this closed door meeting, Fed emergency meeting. What the hell are we gonna do? But anyway, closed door meeting, and I think this was the look at. We haven't been able to contain this problem just at the SVB. It's actually spilling over. Europe is in a bit of trouble. And then, like I said, we go through these regional banks. Like this one, it finished on Friday at $48. And it actually opened up this morning at $12. Woo-wee! Kaboom! GOG says 1 minute long and dreadful. So, yeah, I don't think the speech filled anybody with a sense of confidence. I was reading in this sort of news rants. We have this page up here on the dashboard. Of course, we got to fix this. God, when are we going to get moved to Discord? This Discord move is incredibly difficult. But I do believe Stuart's still banging away on that. I suppose we'll hear from him tomorrow in our report from him on Tuesdays. But also, too, anybody who's a TRIer that's watching this video, if I'm not mistaken, I think that Stuart was asking for volunteers to be testers of the Discord, just the transition and onboarding and all that. So I don't know how old that is, but like I said, we'll get an update from him tomorrow. So anyway, the point of the matter here is CNN of course is like heavily leftist, stunningly leftist. So they're obviously going to spin anything the way Biden and the leftists, the socialists, come out sort of as positive. And I suppose we could go down here to Fox and their the right wings vote, and I'm sure they probably somewhere in here said Biden looked like a total doofus. But anyway. The issue here is, does this have enough of ramifications to derail Jerry's desire to reduce the size of the U.S. Fed's balance sheet? And furthermore, does it actually change the pace of interest rate policy going forward? I think everybody in the world, I think the one statement I think you can make out of all of this is everybody in the world was just waiting for what was going to break. Something was going to break through all this. Me personally, I thought that the U.S. System was the strongest economy and the strongest sort of backdrop around the world. God, I listened. You want a fun adventure to take your mind off of all this craziness going on in North America. Is go listen to Peter Zahn. I was listening to this guy. I think he's like a writer or something. But anyway, he was interviewing this gentleman, Peter Zahn, and I'll tell you, man, this was it's fun listening to Peter because then you think about, okay, well, what's going on in North America? We don't have half the problems that Russia and China and stuff are facing going forward. So I actually thought, to be perfectly honest with you, I thought if anybody was going to break, it was going to be something over in Europe or something maybe down in Central America or something along those lines. But no, turns out it was actually something internal within the United States. And I suppose you could argue it's a function of all the fluffy stupidity of that COVID environment. As I barked about just a moment ago, really this cycle should have politely ended here and this guy come back down to earth nice and politely. And then we got into the COVID stupidity. And this isn't sustainable. The irony of it all, and I see, my level 2 instructor. Speaking of which, Sharky, have you heard from Murat? Has anybody on the site heard from Murat? He was supposed to be on the show on Friday, and I just sent him PMs. Murat, if you are watching this, I hope you're doing okay. Please touch base with us. That's the one danger of running these sort of online businesses is you never know if people just sort of vanish from the online world. Anyway, Murat, if you are listening to this, please get in touch with me. But anyway, the point here, Sharky's talked to you lots about this. We should, or not talk to you, but mention this. He's also part of the level 2 program where we cover this in gap theory. But, if you see that huge hole in the charts, and of course this was right through that, hey, shouldn't we debate mortgaging our future? No, give them all the money that they want. And, that's what happened, right? Yeah, stimmy checks went out. Yeah, interest rates were taken to zero. People borrowed money like crazy. Of course, all of these regional banks had all that money deposited into them. Their stock prices obviously reflected the increase in asset base. But these are banks. Banks are not supposed to grow at this kind of rate. This is actually insulting. It's like bank stocks have decided that they're growth stocks now, when they're not growth stocks. Historically, banks are supposed to be the most boring investments out there. But of course, this crazy-ass world that we live in. So, how ironic. Market's smiling at you. The interesting thing is, what happens if we do a foggy boggy off of that high? What do you think the odds are that 2.618 is probably somewhere right down here? Survey says, oh, hello. What a surprise. So, interesting where they stopped the market on Friday. And I bet a lot of people looked at this and went, okay, the bloodletting's over. We've hit foggies. Everything's fine. Nope, not yet. So, have they contained this problem? I honestly don't know. But what I will say is first thing this morning, we actually got another leg higher in the market here, which to me was, and of course this was on the, basically the US retail open. We saw how the European and the Asian markets were acting. That SVB had operations in Europe. Hell, there's a branch even here in Canada. And all of those branches and all those banking operations went into receivership instantly overnight. And after, I guess, Biden's sort of, pathetic speech there, the market was like, this isn't over by a long shot. And boom, up we go. Now, isn't this interesting how this channel here, up here, this channel had absolutely nothing to do with this study at all to begin with. But this is the beauty about if you can draw price channels correctly, and if anything, this should be a good short for you here, Chris. This whole price channel matrix, or lattice work, whatever the hell you want to call it, it's basically drawn off of these 2 points. That point there, confirmed by market structure signal here. So you draw your channel. And interesting, how is it that this trend line can actually project this bottom down here? I mean, that's killer level. And then what's interesting is look how the bounce came and we just bounced right back into that level. But the really cool thing here is that it's almost like this is like a playground for price. And if price can actually either accept below this playground down here, which it did not do, you can see it probed into there and said, get your ass out of there. But the same logic, if it had accepted down here, then literally price targets would have been that we actually now play down in this range down here. But that's not what happened. It came down to the bottom. I thought we were going to puke out. Thank heavens I covered my shorts here. That was just pulled one out of my butt there. I don't know how I did that. Rallied right back up. And I was sort of like, okay, well, we'll probably stall out here and then roll back over. We rallied right up to the top trend line. But, as I showed you there just a second ago, I mean, this is crazy how this stuff works. So we take the exact same trend channel. We just clone it, and we just draw the trend channel right off the top. And lo and behold, look at where the market stopped. I mean, you can't script that any better than that. How the hell did that happen? I mean, that's crazy when you see that. I'd also say, too, trying to figure out, why did the market stop where it did just there? This also happened, literally as the Fedsters were all getting together around this event, closed door Fed emergency meeting, where my hunch is that it's through this, because keep in mind, it's actually interesting to listen to people in social media that have nothing to do with trading in the markets. They just simply, everybody's consensus is that the President of the United States of America now actually has almost no power at all. And who owns and controls the power in the United States? It's the chairman of the Federal Reserve. They're the most powerful person in the United States of America. So, literally, as soon as this happened, you could see that the panic, not only in things like the bank stocks, right? And is this, well, you can actually see it's already even starting to rally a little bit here. Don't think anybody should touch this for now. Just leave it alone. But also two things like Bitcoin. Banged up against resistance. Banged up against previous highs. I thought it was interesting in our day trading room this morning, we were drawing out levels. And lo and behold, off of this big honking W, down, up, down, if we do fog and bombs, look where this math, please, people, learn this stuff. It's stunning how incredible this stuff is. So, and as I said, I've told you guys repeatedly, this was the gift that Spirit gave me through this whole COVID insanity world. So thank you, Spirit, for teaching me this. Now I've got this skill set in my pocket for the rest of my life. but it's remarkable to watch this stuff play out. So you can see here is your market structure bottom, down, up, down, and we came up and break up, boom. All right, so there it is. I mean, we can do our trend channels, kind of like what I've shown here. This trend channel is just drawn off of this market structure. Could have done another one off of here. I suppose, this is kind of getting off topic, but I suppose we could go there to there, all the way up against whatever the highest high is, maybe even that high there, as an even bigger trend channel. But anyway, we won't go into that today. So double bottom breakout. And there's 2.618. That's your first sort of bifurcation level. And look how the market rallied right into that level and had to pause. And the rule that I've sort of gleaned over the past couple of years working with this is at this point the market will make a decision. It will either come right back down and check the original breakout. And if it actually comes back down and it busts back into the original range, then this Feigenbaum study is off the books. But you can see what happened here. We came up into that 2.618 and not much give back, and we just vaulted higher through that consolidation, breakout through the high. Where do we go? Boom! Right into the next Feigenbaum level. You can't even see it because I got the ATR script on here. I mean, that's crazy. So that was that, what was it? The trend line, I think it was, that I had on the screen there. Was that the channel? Where was that? Yeah, that's this one. So big ass honking down channel target, as well as Feigenbaums. It's interesting, of late, I've kind of gotten more interested in using 78.6 to 88.6 as like the venture cap reload short zone, reload long zone, in this case, reload short. So we also, if you drew continuation patterns, these harmonics, they're called AB equals CD patterns. Boom, 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 boom. There's A, B, C, D target up there. And then there's also this little one. Boom, 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 boom. Off of the 2.618 bullish resolution. And that took us up into here. So in essence, we had one hell of a target window here this morning for price. So if you're sitting there kind of going, now, why on earth did Bitcoin stall out where it did, when it did? I think it's because, number one, we finally have the people who are actually driving the bus actually meeting in earnest. And my hunch is, like I said, it's terribly corrupt, but it is the world that we live in. I think the only reason why they were going to bail out this SVB was because Goldman Sachs was the primary depositor there. No way Goldman was going to take that loss. So, get Janet Yellen in there and do whatever you have to do to save it. But this is having a ripple effect around the world. So on the open this morning, everybody saw how Europe and Asia was kind of freaking out. And now you can actually see the U.S. markets are actually rallying here. Now, Europe's closed. It'd be interesting. My hunch is I bet that Asia is actually going to gap higher here. And probably Europe gaps higher too tomorrow, but we'll see how that goes. But, through the rest of today, you can actually see the U.S. market has turned back up here. It's not huge moves because clearly there's a lot of unknowns about this. If anything, what is going on here that is actually what I think is at quote unquote at fault for all this? And believe it or not, I know it sounds crazy and Brian's a bit of a weirdo, but I actually think what's going on here is this Ides of March issue. So, the Ides of March, 74th day of the Roman calendar. Usually it's the 15th of March. I've seen stock markets crash in decades gone by. Remember, I've been doing this game a long time. We had the 2020 sickness. Should we debate market futures? Give the money, give the money. That was all through that window. Sadly, my wife passed away through this window. This is an incredibly difficult window for us humans to go through. And I actually think it has more to do with that than anything to do with any banking or anything. when you actually listen to sort of people in the know that actually are describing what actually happened here and why this whole quote unquote run happened and what what's going on here, this is just nothing more than an accounting issue. And interestingly enough, I think the solution is just simply going to be that the Fed says, you don't have to sell your bonds at market if your customers are going to demand their deposits back, which is what creates the run to begin with. Remember, we have this fractional reserve banking system, and that's the heart of all of these problems. Because the banksters run our world and they make ridiculous profits off of this fractional reserve banking system, I don't think that's going anywhere anytime soon. So they're just doing these sort of quick fixes when you get these sort of panics in the marketplace. And I think the panic has more to do with celestial events, all the apexes, aspects, conjuncts, oppositions, planets moving, constellations, all that kind of stuff. Like you're like, oh, Brian, you're crazy. But frankly speaking, I think it's what's driving the emotional reaction in the marketplace. And the sad part about it is, if everything was just business as usual and nobody was sort of freaking out and nobody was demanding to get their money out of the bank, none of these banks would have been in any of these troubles. It's just simply a function of, we got a lot of panicky humans. When panicky humans and the herd all moves in unison, I definitely think that, through the COVID world, I showed you the charts. These assets got bid up to ridiculously stupid levels. And now that the whole damn Fakasi is being unwound here. I actually think also, too, that this actually serves the 1%'s desire to kill anybody who's not in a money center bank that's part of the Fed that has a cottage on Jekyll Island and that eats babies for fun. If you're not part of that cartel and part of that cult, they want to kill your business. This is money, and unfortunately these humans, they're pretty damn evil. Ironically enough, the one sort of way out of all of this is your beloved Bitcoin. It's just, just try to understand, we've probably gone a little too far, a little too fast here in the short term. And, once the actual Fed and the banksters meet, they'll come out with a public policy statement and they'll say that, well, okay, we're going to make these people whole and we've got the situation under control. We'll probably see things settle down here a little bit, but who knows? Only time will tell. As I had said to start off this broadcast, hammers, they're pretty significant. And if anything, this reversal that we saw happen midday yesterday, believe it or not, this actually is also painting a price objective. As I had shown you off the lower time frame charts, I think the objectives are getting reached. What I do find interesting about all of this is that it's all going to happen. This will all be taken care of by time the Ides of March are done. And then after all this, like next week, you might find that this whole week, there's the Ides right there. We know, of course, that March has a huge options expiry. So maybe in the Afterparty, we'll go look at the options and we'll figure out where these, the 1% really want this market to go. But the Fed doesn't meet till over here. You might find that if we have hot CPI prints and stuff like that, and, they've come out with a public statement saying that we're going to guarantee all depositors' holdings at SVB or whatever other regional bank that you're banking with. We have this special fund that we're going to use to create it. And oh, by the way, all of these now regional banks are now nationalized, i.e. they're off the board. Fed achieves their desired goal of killing all the regional banks, and now they've got complete and utter control of our society. You might find by next Wednesday, JP's like, well, we're still on our plan of raising interest rates, and they continue to raise interest rates. Who knows? So just be aware that I actually think that the big catalyst here is this Ides of March. What's going on here? And the humans are freaking out exactly like we kind of thought was going to happen through this. You never really know which way price is going to go. And frankly speaking, I certainly didn't expect Bitcoin to jump up like this. It is interesting off the weekly charts that all we've done here with this is just taken back this recent pullback in price. As I have on this chart here, I don't really think that this is a new bull until you actually see Bitcoin closing out up top here through this resistance level. For now, I hate to say it, all this really was is a dead cat bounce, right? We were cranking lower and we just bounced right back up into resistance. And now, as you can see, we're actually stalling out at some very interesting levels up here. ABCDs, fog and bombs, reload zones. So, I don't think it's a good idea to go FOMO buy Bitcoin here. That's just asking for trouble. Having said that, I did find it interesting that I put out tweets recently saying over this past week, I've actually bought more crypto than I bought over the past 6 months. And here's a perfect example. We were talking about this one last week, and I love the fact that this asset had broken out through these highs. And I was like, oh God, I want to get long. I want to get long. I kept seeing this stupid thing moving up, and I was like, okay, I got to be patient. Got to work my orders. I love 78.6, Brian's favorite fib. And sure enough, through that dump, actually, I got an absolute gift there just, 2 days ago. And now, this is not supposed to happen. You're not supposed to buy something and it goes up 41% in one day. Gee whiz. That's crazy. So that's the kind of market that we're in right now. I still am going to reiterate this message. Pullbacks are buying opportunities. And I'll finish this video off with, because it just made me laugh so much, the silly Algo, and keep in mind, this is sort of like my career's work. The Algo it actually was flashing. You can't, with the slow at 3.33, it can't go any lower than 0. It's not like it's going to go much lower. And sure enough, this Algo signal was basically about 2 or 3 days too early. Now, the interesting thing about the Algo and this particular trading plan is all I'm doing is I'm saying, when the Algo tells you to buy, just go and buy a little bit of whack of it. When the Algo tells you to sell, we get a moving average cross to the downside, we go and sell it. So ironically enough, and that's this image, and it's just a trader's life. If anything, if you fancy yourself, you want to be a trader, you want to live a trader's life, a lot of a trader's life is, I don't know what the fuck's going to happen. My setup, my plan tells me to do this, so I just got to follow the plan. Let's see what the hell happens. So the irony of all this is that I was actually sort of fighting amongst myself, because I had the Algo say go long here, but I had like a manual trade setup that I used to trade like prop firm days tell me to short here. So the Algo was dying 1,000 deaths here, and it never got a sell signal, so I wasn't allowed to close the position. And now, ironically enough, the Algo is actually back in profit. So go figure, right? You can't write better fiction than reality. I'll tell you, this is a crazy-ass world we live in. And here's Brian, just sort of, I even put a message out yesterday saying, can we please just calm down here a little bit? Can I get a nice bullish divergence, maybe a nice W in price to set up a long trade off of the bottom? No. Market just goes zooming straight up. Put out a tweet yesterday. Well, is this maybe a short trade location? We'll let this set up. Do I get bear divs? Do I get an M in price? Nope, straight up. So, even as it is right now, I mean, maybe, yes, I have trade location because I showed you, fog and bombs, ABCDs, top of channels. But I still have to let this set up. Still have to hunt for divergence. Still have to hunt for M's, thinking short. So there's really nothing for me to do manually here in the market. And, somebody even mentioned it, and I thought it was an absolutely perfect comment yesterday, was somebody just said when I was barking on social media about all this, holy crap, we're zooming up, we're zooming down, this is insanity. What do we do? Is this a short trade location? And they're kind of like, well, Brian, considering the absolute crazy fundamentals that are going on in the world right now, maybe the best thing to do is just cool your jets and just leave this alone for a little bit. And I responded back to the person. I said, that's actually very wise. So yes, you can see all my commentary. Bark, 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 up and down. No, is this a level? Is that a level? Is that a level? Yeah, so like this person here, Dow Bull, said, trading on technicals works best without fundamental changes in play. And I have to agree with him. This is what I actually teach in the damn course. I learned that from you, right? We say technical analysis works best in the absence of new fundamental drivers. That's the way this thing goes. So too much happening right now, fundamental-wise, to trade BTC now, in my opinion. And my simple response was wise. Because frankly speaking, I actually think it is kind of wise just to, let the stupid humans do their stupidity through this whole Ides of March stuff. Let's let this settle down. I mean, I got damn lucky covering my shorts there. I don't even really have any trade setups through here. I'm just watching and just like in awe and just waiting. Because, like I said, I don't have any setups to do anything. I've talked now, about 45 minutes. There's obviously a lot to talk about here today. I think I'll leave the video at that. We'll pop on over and we'll talk in the after party show about any questions or anything. But the long and short of it right now, I'm just sitting on the sidelines, just watching. How ironic. The Algo is still long, and that's really the only quote-unquote trade that I have on right now. So, okay, I hope that gives you an idea of what the hell I'm seeing in the market. I don't even know if that's of any value, but I hope it is. If you need some help trying to put together plans to actually address, what is going to actually get me to act in the marketplace, that's our school program. I think it's helpful to pre-vet all of this sort of conditions that will actually get you to act. And as this person outlined, believe it or not, this is a kind of situation where we probably just ought to let things settle down a little bit before we make any grand decisions going forward. About 10 minutes ago, 20 minutes ago, Chris said, coming up on 3 minutes. Chris, you got to be a little bit more active. I'm not quite sure why you're so gun shy, but you got to step in and go, Brian. All right, I think I'm going to leave it at that. Have yourselves a great day. PMA for the win. All the best, and bye for now.